Hello everyone, welcome back to this video series on clinical SAS ADaM programming. In this video, we will see a programming concept of ADaM, BDS dataset, and derived records creation. So in this lesson, we will see creation of new records to hold minimum and maximum values across post baseline period. We will see this entire example based on the vital signs data. So a brief description about the concept discussed in this video. So let us say that we have a TFL shell which summarizes the result and change from baseline value at each visit collected and also the minimum value seen during post baseline period and also maximum value seen during post baseline period. So these are the collected visits and there are two conceptual time points and these are being summarized as rows. So for the derived datasets to be analysis ready as per ADaM standard, we need to identify the minimum value and maximum value observed during the post baseline period. So we also need to decide on how to organize the analysis dataset. In the ADaM implementation guide, there are certain rules that guide a user on when to add an analysis data point as a row and when to add it as a column. So these are two additional data points where we have to make a decision. So the rule 3 of ADaM implementation guide, on which guides a user to add data points as rows or columns, says a function of one or more rows within the same parameter for the purpose of creating an analysis time point should be added as a new row for the same parameter. So we could identify the minimum value post baseline period using a flag and populating it as Y or with a meaningful value. And also we can do the same for maximum value and you populate it with a flag in a variable. But as per rule 3, so whenever we are adding a data point as a function of one or more rows within the same parameter for the purpose of creating an analysis time point. So here in this case, minimum value post baseline and maximum value post baseline are being considered as conceptual analysis time points. So in this case, we will have to prepare our ADaM datasets and add these two rows as a row instead of a column for the same parameter. So minimum value post baseline and maximum value post baseline in this shell are considered as conceptual analysis time points. So we need to apply rule 3 for this scenario and add new rows for the same parameter in this scenario in our ADaM dataset. So what will be covered in this lesson? So we'll see how to identify the record with minimum value and append that record to the parent dataset. We will also see how to identify the record with the maximum value and append that record to the parent dataset. And we'll also see the usage of dtype variable to identify the derived records. So let us take a look at the specification provided to us. So in the specification, we have certain analysis variables are being created and we are being given with the derivation logic that needs to be used to derive those analysis variables. So the first variable is ADT. So it says extract the date portion from VSDTC, which is SDTM vital signs VSDTC variable, and we are being asked to convert it into numeric value. And for parameter, we are being asked to populate it using VS position by converting it into prop case and then concatenating it to VS test and also concatenating it to VS standard result units. But we are being asked to put that units within the parentheses. And for param CD, the derivation says if VS position is equal to sitting and VS test CD is equal to sysBP, then set to ST SBP. So similarly, for VS position is equal to sitting and VS test CD is equal to dia BP. So we are being asked to set it to ST DBP. And for paramin, we are asked to set to 1 when param CD is ST SBP. Similarly, we are being asked to set to 2 when param CD is ST DBP. And for eval, which is analysis value, we are being asked to use the value from VS, ST, RESN from SDTM vital signs dataset. And for analysis dataset, so it says for the source records, so as we have discussed, so we have collected records at different time points and we are trying to add two new records for each subject and parameter, one for minimum and one for maximum. So for the source records, we are being asked to populate a visit as screening when vs.visit is equal to screen. And on all the other records, we are being asked to populate with the vs.visit variables after converting it into proper case, which is the first letter would be in uppercase and rest of the other letters will be in lowercase letters. And then the second component of a visit derivation says create a new record for each parameter within a subject to hold the minimum value across all post baseline records. And it also says if there exists more than one record with minimum value, pick the record with earliest date. So there can be cases wherein there on more than one instance the value could be same and that value could be the minimum value seen during the entire post baseline period. So in that case we are being asked to use the earliest record for creating the minimum value record. So on this newly created record, we are being asked to set the a visit value as minimum value post baseline. And similarly, for the third component says create a new record for each parameter within a subject to hold the maximum value across all post baseline period. So if there exists more than one record with maximum value, pick the record with earliest date. Similar to what is being done in minimum value, we are being asked to use the earliest record if there exists more than one record with the highest value in the result variable. So on this newly created record for maximum value, so we are being asked to populate a visit variable with the value of maximum value post baseline. And then for a visit n, it says for the source records set to vs.visitNum. So we are being asked to use the value from visitNum and assign it to a visit n. And for second component says on the newly created record holding the minimum post baseline value, we are being asked to set to 98 and we are being asked to set to 99 for the maximum post baseline value record. So we are creating two additional records at the maximum for each subject and parameter and then appending it to the source records as per this derivation. And finally, the derivation for D type says set to minimum on the newly created record holding the minimum value and set to maximum on the newly created record holding the maximum value. So let us take a look at the input data set for this lesson and then try to manually identify the use case. So as part of the programming, we will create these analysis variables and also create two additional records and append it to the source records and then complete our programming. So let us move on to the input data. So we have our DM dataset which has data for 5 subjects 10012 to 1005, out of which reference start date, which is nothing but the treatment start date in this case, is available for 4 subjects from 1001 to 1004. The main dataset that is used as input for this lesson is our vital signs dataset. In this data, we have data for subject 1001 and 1002. So within 1001, if we take a look, then we have data for two test CDs. One is DTYPE and the second one is systolic blood pressure. Same is the case for second subject. There are data for systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure. And the data is available at screening visit, baseline visit, week 2 and week 24. So and the date of collection is available in VS/DTC variable. So let us now try to manually identify the minimum value and maximum value and try to populate some analysis variables in this. So at the maximum, so a subject can have two new records added per parameter. So there can be cases wherein there are no records for a subject during post baseline period. In that case, we will not have those two newly created records added because the newly created records concept is based on values seen during post baseline period. So if the subjects do not have any post baseline record, there is no concept of adding these two new records. So now let us see. So as part of the specification, we have seen the description is minimum value during post baseline and maximum value during post baseline. So any record which is collected after treatment start date is considered post baseline. So let us take a look at the subject 1001 and see the subject's treatment start date. So it is 29th April 2003. So any record which is collected after 29th April would become eligible for being class for creating the minimum and maximum post baseline value records. So we have records on 15th April, 29th April, 13th May and 13th October. So there are two records which can be considered for our post baseline cases. So 29th April, so these two are before baseline period, so these cannot be considered. So these are during post baseline period. So out of these two records, let's say we are trying to create the record for minimum value post baseline. So the minimum value, the eval is nothing but analysis value or the result value. We need to take a look at the available results. So we have one record with the value of 142 and the second record with a value of 140. So out of these two records, what is the minimum value? The minimum value is 140 when compared to 142. So this record becomes eligible for our minimum value seen during post baseline period. So let us copy this over and then let us also try to just indicate it in a color. So this record has to be our minimum value post baseline period. So we have seen in the specification that on this newly created record, we were asked to populate the a visit value as minimum value post baseline. So let us try to populate it with that. And we were also asked to populate a visit n with a value of 98 if I am not wrong. So we were asked to populate it as 98 on this record. So this we can make it as 98. So we were also asked to set the D type value to minimum on this newly created record. So this is how we can identify the record minimum value and then try to append it to our source data. So if you see, there is this concept of traceability in ADaM. So if you want to see like which record has contributed to this minimum value post baseline, you can always go back and trace based on the values of subject and then also the test CD or param CD and then visit them and visit. So you in fact we can also make use of the ADT along with these variables if there exists more than one record in that combination. So visit num10 and week 24 record is actually the post baseline minimum record. So now let us try to do the post baseline maximum or maximum value seen during post baseline. So we had two records during post baseline period, one on 13th May and one on 13th October. So out of these two records, so 142 and 140, 142 is the maximum. So this record becomes eligible for our maximum post baseline. So let us try to do some color coding. So this record is becoming our post baseline. So on this record, what were we asked to do? So we were asked to populate the max a visit value as maximum value post baseline. So we would populate it with that way. And we were asked to populate it with 99 in a visit n variable and also we were asked to populate it with maximum in D type variable. So this is how we can get the minimum value and maximum value records and then try to append these to source records. So same thing can be applied to other subjects and parameters. So now let us come back and see the programming approach for this. So if you see, as part of the first step, what we are trying to do is reading the input data set, and we had some variables which are directly based on the input variables. So some of which are param cd, param, paramin, adt, eval, and avisit_n. So what we are trying to do here is trying to create param cd and param and using the condition specified in the specification. And then we were creating param variable based on the logic provided in the specification by concatenating the prop case vs position value and concatenating it with vs test and also vs stresu, and we are extracting the date portion from the vs dtc using substr function and then converting it into numeric format using input function and yymmdd10.in format. And then for the source records, the eval is nothing but the copy of VSST RESN, and a visit is being created with the value of screening when visit is equal to screening, and on all the other records we were asked to populate it with the proper case value of visit. So we are making use of prop case function and then creating the a visit variable. And then we are trying to fetch the reference start date or the treatment start date. In order to identify the post baseline records, we need to have the date of collection in vital signs alongside the treatment start date for that subject. So we are creating a new variable called TRT by using the reference start date, which is nothing but the treatment start date, and then converting it into numeric format and then merging it into our vital signs data and keeping all the records which are present in for the subjects who are present in both the data sets. And then we are trying to get the processing for minimum result across post baseline rows. So here in this step, what we are trying to do is sort the records of our vital sign and create a new data set called min01. We are making sure that the records are sorted based on subject and within a parameter, result, and date. And in this proc sort, we are actually trying to filter only those records which are after treatment start date. So ADT greater than treatment start date, and we are also making sure that the result is not missing on that post baseline records. So ADT greater than TRT SDT gives us the records which are post baseline records and the records with non-missing value. So we can have more than one record in the post baseline period. So we need to pick the earliest record with the lowest value record, and if there exists more than one record, we need to pick the earliest record. So we have ensured that within a subject and parameter. So as we have sorted the results records based on the value ascending values of eval, the record with the lowest value comes on top. And even if there exists more than one record with the lowest value in result variable, we are making sure that ADT is also sorted. So when there exist two records with the same result value, lowest result value, the earliest record comes on top because we are sorting the records based on ascending ADT. And then we are subsetting the earliest record for subject and parameter. And then that record is nothing but our minimum value record, and on that record we are assigning a visitor as 98, minimum value post baseline, and d type is equal to minimum. So same process is being done for maximum, but here if we see, the only difference is, so here when we are sorting the records based on ascending eval and ascending, so there is a minor update needed in this code, that as we need to pick the earliest date, so we should have added descending ADT here in this case. So it should be descending ADT, ascending eval and descending ADT if we are using last.parameter. So we can make that change and we can run the piece of code to get the maximum record. So a visitor is equal to 99 and a visit is equal to maximum value post baseline, D type is equal to maximum, and then we are appending our minimum value records and maximum value records to the VS02 dataset. And then finally we are resorting the dataset as per our requirement. So let us take a look at the in intermediate datasets as well. So in this VS02, so we have already had the intermediate analysis variables which are direct based on direct copies of or direct transformation of the SDTM VS variables and also the TRT SDT fetched into it. So in min01 we try to filter all the post baseline records for the subjects and then where the result is not missing, and we have also ensured that the sorting is based on subject, parameter, eval and ADT. So these are the post baseline records and sorted in such a way that the lowest result value comes on top. So here if you see for subject 1001, so let me zoom in a bit. For subject 1001 systolic blood pressure, we have sorted the records in such a way that the first record is the record with the lowest result value, so which is nothing but minimum value. So we then subsetted the earliest record. So we have one record per subject per parameter. So we had data in vital signs for subject 1001 and 1002. So there were two parameters, systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure. So for these two subjects, two parameters, so four records are identified. And then these records are identified as minimum. So similarly for maximum processing, we have ensured that the sort order is, so let's go to max 01. So we have ensured that the last record will have the value of highest result. So and then we have picked the last record and then we appended our source records and we have appended the newly created records to our source records and then which gives our final output data set. So the source records and the two newly created derived records for each subject and parameter. So the importance of D type is if it is populated, indeed it indicates that the record is a derived record. So if it is null, it indicates that it is a source record. So this is how we can create new records in ADaM BDS datasets.